Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of extended tempo shifts, looking at songs that feature extended moments where the tempo is gradually rising or falling. Today we're going to be looking at a track from Converge. The track's called The Saddest Day, comes off of their Petitioning the Empty Sky album. Let's kick it. See what Converge is bringing to the table today. Okay, that was a fun little tempo change. I can't believe we're only 2 minutes into this. It has felt so long already. Yeah. Dude, this is so intense. Very eerie. Very interesting temporal manipulation here. All right, probably no surprise for long-term viewers of the channel. This was noise to me. Anyways, I don't think I got a lot out of this on the harmonic area. Maybe not even the textural area. A lot of it's just aggressive screaming, aggressive guitars, aggressive bass, aggressive drum. It's just an aggressive track from start to finish, except for that little eerie bit, maybe about 4 minutes into it. I don't think I'm going to have any deep thoughts or opinions about the atmospheric component to this or the emotional component, any sort of narrative or thematic story to this track. It's just raw and angry from start to finish. And it doesn't try to pretty that up. It doesn't try to be something it's not. It says, this is what we're going for. Let's just do it. No point trying to disguise it. And right from the get-go, it was already intense. I don't remember what my first thoughts were other than, here we go. There's no ramping up. There's no easing the listener into this. You're thrust right into it immediately. And the song does not pull any punches throughout the entirety of the runtime either. You're just consistently in this mess, and the only way through it is through it. So you just got to sit by and wait for the track to end, and it ends just as unceremoniously as it begins. The track just starts, and you're at this 10 already, and it ends at a 10, and I looked down at the time and realized, hey, we only got 3 seconds to go. How are they going to wrap this up? And then they just stopped playing. There was no neat bow put on the track, no harmonic conclusion, just a couple of accented da 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 da, and then that's it. Over. Much like it started, we just run it right up to the end. You got noise and aggression to the very last beat, just as you had noise and aggression from the very first beat. Very intense track, very overwhelming track. Now, I had mentioned that there's some interesting temporal control there at the end. A lot of this track takes place in 4/4, but there's plenty of tempo shifts which can create polyrhythmic grooves. In the penultimate section of the track, you may have noticed that I wasn't really bobbing my head along with the music. I was continuing for one reason or another, I'm not even really sure why, continuing to move my body to the old tempo. While we were still in 4/4, we had changed the speed. It's quite a bit faster now. And what I found out was that it still kind of lines up. It almost feels like we've shifted from quarter notes to eighth note triplets in the span of, give or take, the 4 beats that we had now. I was bobbing 3 times. Well, I can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that should be generally where things reset. But like I said, it's about 4 beats to the 3 that I was feeling. Come to find out, it doesn't fit neatly into that 6. This new time signature isn't really based off, or sorry, the new tempo isn't based off of the old one. It's just generally faster. And so I don't know if this is going to be perfect. It could be that it is, a fraction of a beat separate. But generally, as far as I could tell, without a pulse really in the track, I was getting 13 beats to their 16. More so like a group of 6 and 7 within their groupings of 8 and 8. I thought this was pretty interesting. Again, it may not be a perfect 13/6 polyrhythm, but it is close enough that I couldn't tell the difference without a metronome or some sort of software to accurately gauge it. But what I could feel is that it felt pretty close. What was interesting, though, is that what I was feeling, that 13, eventually became the new pulse because we shifted out of 4/4 into 3/4 using the pulse of this old tempo. I thought that was really bizarre. There is no reason that hanging on to an old tempo's cadence should find a way to be matched into a future one, especially with a track that changes ideas as quickly as this one. It is pure coincidence that I landed upon that. But I did find that to be really interesting because it wasn't just random tempos. There is a pattern displayed throughout this. We shifted between tempos and time signatures and ended up in a place that kind of wasn't too different from where we had started. But the journey was wild. And I find that to be really interesting, and it makes me wonder where else this might have happened in the track. Because this isn't the first Converge track we've listened to, and while I do expect them to have some depth to their writing, I don't think that they are just completely winging it when it comes to their music. Based on what y'all have told me, they're very much a gut-based group of musicians. They're not academically trained. They don't write sheet music. It's more of like, wow, this riff sounds sick, so let's do that next, and then build the song around that. It's very, in the moment, whatever feels right to do, just kind of go for it. That sort of intrinsic composition rather than an educational extrinsic kind of compositional process. The fact that any of this creates patterns at all kind of surprises me because I don't think it was intentionally done that way for the dots to be able to be connected to form a picture, but it does. And I think this is something that gets overlooked often when it comes to these types of composers, especially in rock and metal, where people are just kind of making whatever sounds right, where the rule of cool really thrives. The fact that it sounds good is because if you look at it theoretically, it is working. on levels that maybe they didn't know they were working on, but their gut knew that this was the smart thing to do. That theory backs it, even if they didn't know that theory themselves, or maybe they didn't know that theory, academically, mentally, they hadn't studied it, but they can feel it. This feels right. And so whether they did this on purpose or not, it is still here, and it still creates an incredibly pleasant movement through these tempos and time signatures as we push into the final, push through the final 2 minutes of this track. It makes me wonder what else in this song where else in this song I can find patterns like that. But we also have the theme of the week. And I believe this makes up a little bit for the previous two tracks we've listened to. I've come to the conclusion that maybe I just didn't make myself clear, or maybe my explanation was confusing or something. I've talked to a couple people so far this week, over on Patreon and in the comments here, and I just think I didn't convey the theme description properly. It's pretty consistent that nobody quite understood what I was aiming for this week, which is fine. Absolutely fine. We can always take another shot at this theme another time and get some stuff that is more accurate to the theme. We've still checked out some cool stuff this week, but this track is sort of a masterclass at the extended tempo shifts idea, the gradual and persistent accelerandos, or increase of tempo, and retardandos, or decrease in tempo over time. This song has 4 of them. Maybe only 3. It's definitely more than 1, which is pretty uncommon already in popular music. And while I don't think Converge is the most popular band, the genre, being metalcore here, being punk and metal adjacent, they're very popular genres these days. So it's just not something you see too often in popular music, in the popular genres. And to have 1 is kind of something to stand out, but this had 3 or 4 where the song just consistently starts to slow down and get slower and slower, starts to build up and gets faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And it's just so many of these moments in here, and I find it really interesting of what that means, to me at least, from a thematic standpoint. If this is anger, which is how I feel most of this track, or aggression, I think is probably more accurate. An increase of that would be a building of rage. I think that makes sense, but what is a decrease, especially when we don't decrease into levity, passiveness, docile sounds? Even at our quietest and least energetic, it is still off-putting. It is eerie and dangerous sounding. A lot of that has to do with the harmonic values in that section, where the clean vocals are just incredibly out of tune with themselves and with the guitars around them, and the off-kilter harmonic element mixed with the sounds of these instruments just creates something that it feels dangerous, some place I shouldn't be. Fight or flight kicks in with sounds like this. So there's still intensity there, even if it isn't loud, even if it isn't abrasive. There is still maybe the implication of danger, maybe possibly the implication of violence. This is a very violent song all over the place, and I think even in a section like this, we can find that. But we aren't reducing the anger to find a place of calm, and I think that's a really interesting element to this. Even in the quietest moments, it's still aggressive. So it's a fluctuation of aggression, different forms of aggression to mold it between softer spoken aggression and more in your face aggression. I don't know. We'll have to get to the lyrics. The title does not sell me on anything here. I'll be completely honest. The Saddest Day, it is Converge. I was expecting heaviness, but also melancholy, possibly sadness, as the title might suggest. It might be that this is a song about grief and we're in the anger stage here, but regardless, this sounds not really what I was expecting. And through that lens, I don't really know how to interpret the consistent tempo movement, other than also an unpredictability, which may tie into the mental state or maybe the emotional state of this person who is experiencing the saddest day of their life, presumably. Maybe their life so far. It's kind of tough to gauge a day against the future, but I don't know, maybe it's clairvoyant. Anyways, I'm off topic here. Sometimes the mind just wanders. And anyways, I find it to be such an evocative part of this track. Whatever it means, hopefully the lyrics help push me in an understanding or push me towards an understanding of it. But it is something that stands out. Even though I was expecting it, it is the theme of the week. I'm still surprised by how frequently and effectively it gets used here. It is both done for theatric effect as well as narrative effect. I think that's pretty cool. Um, what else do I have to say about this? It sounds like metalcore. It's definitely punky, but at times it feels like a punky Metallica. There's definitely some riffs in here that I feel are influenced by that group. The vocals, though, are unintelligible, which I don't quite remember being a distinct quality of Converge's vocalists, plural? I definitely think there's two vocalists on this track, at least, consistently layering their harshes in ways that make the lack of enunciation even more difficult to decipher. Honestly, even at times where the vocals are clear in the mix, and I'm keying into them specifically, what are you singing about? I can't make out words. It just sounds like unintelligible blabbering done with some fry scream. So I try my best. What are they trying to convey here? And if this is about grief and we're in the anger stage, a lack of self-control, maybe a destructive lack of self-control, possibly a lack of caring for precision and enunciation. All of these things could be accurate when we think about this production style in the concept of grief. But I could still be way off. Let's check out some lyrics. I wish I had more to say about this, but honestly, it was 7 minutes of me sort of cringing due to how gnarly all of this sounds and how gnarlier it gets throughout. It's just a really aggressive track to me. So, yeah, lyrics. Lyrically, this is certainly a bit on the more melancholic side, and honestly, I would say that if I had been given the lyrics first, much like the title, I would never have envisioned a song quite like this, but I kind of get it. Grief doesn't have to be solemn and melancholic. As I mentioned earlier, anger is usually a stage of grief. Sadness can make us upset. And this does a really great job of capturing that sort of aggression through the lens of grief. The very first stanza says, "And we won't be breathing in that same sun again. None of this will ever surface again." So there's a vast separation to be so far from someone that you don't even bask within the same sunlight anymore. Maybe hyperbole. Maybe the other person has passed away. Not sure. It doesn't quite explain it here, though I am seeing this as the first track on the album. It's certainly setting up ideas and themes that will hopefully be explored elsewhere. Maybe it's not even a concept album, but that's where my mind always goes. I don't know why. I like the idea of concept albums. They're neat. More bands should try them. Anyways, the next, well, I say the next stanza, but I'm not too sure about that. The vocals rarely quit in this track, and yet there's 12 lines of lyrics, something that probably could have been summed up within the first 2 minutes if they had just sung it straight out. So I'm curious if there's repetition in here or cycles, or I vaguely remember we checked out a Converge track from some sort of Jane Doe album, and the lyrics that were written in the pamphlet, in the CD pamphlet, was basically all the unique lines that were in it, but that how they were sung in the song were wildly deviated from that. Sometimes using heavy repetition on single lines, sometimes doing them out of order of how they were placed in the booklet. I don't know if that was actually Converged though, but it is ringing a bell. I could be a little off on that, but I wonder if that's what's going on here too, where these are all of the ideas conveyed in the track. This just isn't necessarily the order they are conveyed in. Regardless, the second group of sentences here, how we get older, how we forget about each other, and the angel falls to the sky. Raised and coiled, she blessed this day, and it rings our ears. Very interesting. An angel blesses the day, and how they bless it, whatever sound they make, is ringing in our ears. Usually not a positive description, but can be. But this angel also fell to the sky, which could talk about an inversion, falling upwards, which would be something out of place, or it could be that the angel fell to our sky from up above that. Not necessarily a scientific up above the stratosphere, but maybe a metaphorical up above, some sort of heaven or afterlife plane. Regardless, falling is usually not a good thing, and an angel falling is a bad omen in most ways to view it. So that's really interesting. I'm not sure what to take from that. It's a bit too vague and metaphorical, but none of it sounds good. And it does come directly after how we get older, how we forget about each other, which is sometimes it's life. You make friends, you spend time, build memories, you go your separate ways. Depending on when that was in your life, decades later, you may completely forget about those moments, forget about those people. The last group of lines says she rarely flies anymore. Burden broke her wings. And I know this ghost. I've seen it before. Young, it is the dying too fast, too soon. I'll be okay. This isn't the first time, or this is the first time, but it's not the last time that we have this sort of broken syntax here. Young, it is the dying too fast is a wild sentence, but we'll see something similar again in a second. It says the air thins in the quick, and our lips move, but we hear no sound. She whispered, every time you justify, another good in you dies. Your faith and fear seared me, and love and you pull all the right strings. How we get older, how we forget about each other, she said, entwined within the sadder of days. Yeah, there's an element here of not being able to remember the details of good times, wanting to tap into these memories, and it's just a lot of blurriness to them. You know these events happened, you know this person was a part of your life, but so many holes in the memories itself. It's just been so long. Some things are clearer than others. It says our lips move, but we hear no sounds. That's an interesting line too. Every time you justify, another good in you dies, implying that the other person was becoming disillusioned with our narrator. Maybe they did some stuff that they should have been ashamed of or should have felt some remorse for, and instead justified the actions. And our narrator saw a light within them dwindling every single time they did this. Your faith and fear seared me of being burned by someone else's negative relationships to you, feeling them getting distant, more critical of your actions, and the pain of that. It says, but the love and you yourself pull all of the right strings. Interesting, usually pulling at the heartstrings, which doesn't say heartstrings, but it's kind of what I get out of it, is usually about making you feel sad about something. When a film pulls at your heartstrings, it's a sappy moment maybe, or something melancholic, a beautiful reunion, or the death of a favorite character. But it says you and your love, and interestingly, it's love and you pull all the right strings. Very interesting syntax there. But this person and what they embody to our narrator, what they can do for them, it brings sadness to them, possibly because they are being pushed away. They justify these actions that this other person can't get behind. A distance grows between them, and they can feel that. They can't make any changes, though. All they can do is watch this person drift away, becoming more and more judgmental, as they look back at our narrator and see just a hollow shell of who they once were. How we get older, how we forget each other is brought into a new light. Previously, it was about memory, but here, it's also about how people change. It's easy to forget how people were when you first met them versus who they are now, 1, 5, 10, 20 years later. You spend so much time with someone, everything just kind of blurs together. It's hard to remember who they might have been when they were less jaded a decade ago, less critical, happier. And the future just seemed brighter than the bleakness it ended up being. Entwined within the sadder days, I think, is the line that pulls all of this together. Who someone was, the memories of that person then is intertwined with who they are now, or who they feel to you now, as so much friction has been brought up between these two people. It's so hard to remember who they are because of all of the recency of who they are now. Really great lyricism in this. And pairing that all with anger, I think, is interesting. That's not where I would have gone with this. I still think that there needs to be something more introspective and possibly a little more vulnerable for the lyrics here, at least this final stanza. But I can appreciate the direction they went. A sort of vulnerable rage, if there could be something. Not usually a combo I think of personally, but I think they kind of made it work. These are my thoughts then. Converge, the saddest day. What did you think though? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this? Let me know. Put all of that, as well as anything else you'd like to, into the comments section below. Above that, in the description box, is a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening. whenever you choose to watch my videos.